Alright, so hello everyone and welcome to my talk through of Path of Exile, where I'm playing a dominating bloke guardian in the solo self-found Delve League. And this time around I started off by actually doing a little bit of decorating in my hideout because it was pretty plain. Once that was done though, I started mapping big time and it started off pretty good. I got this cool loot explosion with a triple unique from the graveyard bosses. I found a trial of lingering pain, so that's 2 out of 6 uber trials done, after which I decided to actually equip the gold rim that I just got in the graveyard because my resistances were still not capped and it was becoming an issue. Then I found my first breach, which was Tull, and I must say, breaches are a lot of fun with this setup. And in that map, I found an upgrade in the form of a new Corsair sword, which was fairly similar to the one I was using already, it just had more damage. Then I got another pretty cool unique from the bosses in the graveyard, the Bones of Uller, and these are pretty good for a normal type summoner because they give you an extra zombie and an extra spectre, but they're not a great pair of boots for a setup like this, where my zombies and my spectres are kind of just like a meat shield and a little bit of support. The movement speed roll on them was also pretty terrible. Now after that I ran my first Beyond map and I couldn't even tell that it had Beyond on it because my minions would just instantly destroy the Beyond monsters as soon as they spawned. Until I got to this box, that is, because I got a Bamet spawn here and I also got quite a few uniques as well. I mean, if I ever want to do something crit based that uses evasion as a form of defense, I have one of the best helmets now, because that right there was a Star Conja. This map was just awesome. I even got a pretty cool Siege Axe from the bosses, which ended up being a massive damage upgrade for me. I mean, yeah, it does have some trashy rolls. You don't really want to see life gain, don't kill, dexterity, or a tiny amount of cold damage on your weapon, but the percent physical, the flat physical, and the attack speed were pretty good. Plus, that little bit of dex on the axe allowed me to unequip one of my trashy rings, which I was just using to get enough dexterity, and allowed me to use this one, which had much better resistances. Then I tried playing around with Phase Run instead of Shield Charge for a little bit, because Phase Run is considered a spell, so it will trigger my Guardian Ascendancy and give me 10% spell block every time I use it. This was also where I got my first Divine Orb, which I got from the boss here. But anyway, back to Phase Run, I actually played around with it quite a bit, and it felt better in Delves because I wasn't getting stuck anywhere near as much as I did with Shield Charge. But it's A, nowhere near as good as Shield Charge when it comes to moving around, and B, I ran into a bit of an issue because Phase Run needs a lot of dexterity as you level it up, and I don't have an awful lot, so I couldn't get it past level 4 or 5. And, I almost forgot, C, you can't get Fortify with Phase Run, so I did eventually switch back to Shield Charge. But before I did that, I did find a new Uber trial, which was the Trial of Stinging Doubt, and it was actually one of the reasons why I switched back to Shield Charge, because it was a nightmare to get through with just Phase Run. Then, I did something that you don't necessarily have to do, but it helps if you're in solo self-found. I got all the tier 2 maps before actually doing any of them. That way, I can easily move over to tier 2 without screwing my map drops. Because if you only finish the tier 1 maps and a tier 2 map drops, it'll be a map that's adjacent to the map you're currently doing on the Atlas. But if you've already finished a tier 2 map, that map now has a chance to drop in all the tier 1 maps. And the more you do this, the worse it gets, because you're just diluting the pool further and further. But once again, this is only really relevant if you're playing in SSF, because if you're in a trade league, you can just buy the map that you're missing. Next on the menu, we have this juicy astro plate that I want to use. I found it in one of the maps and crafted on some life because I finally want to get rid of the tabula. However, I haven't had much luck linking it yet, so I'm still using the tabula for the time being. Around the same time was also when I got into this really good rhythm of just mapping, full on sulfide, delve, mapping, full on sulfide, delve. And I ended up getting quite a few nice gear upgrades like this shield over here, which had a decent amount of ES. I mean, once again, it's not a mirror-worthy item, but it's pretty good, and it kind of started off my transition from pure life into hybrid. Because at this point, my passive tree was pretty much done and I was just filling out random nodes here and there, and I was picking up jewel sockets. And since I still have quite a few levels and therefore passive points to go, I did indeed decide to transition into hybrid for higher effective life, especially since I'm pathing around some pretty chunky ES nodes. And then I finally started doing something that I should have done from the very start, and that's to go hard on Prophecies. Because even though a lot of people don't do them, Prophecies are really good. And that's not just for solo self-found, it's really good to do in a trade league as well. I mean, half the currency I make in standard is from Prophecies because people just don't do them, so some of the exclusive items you can only get from Prophecies are very, very expensive. Now the way I do Prophecies is that I don't do them all the time, I kind of do them in stages. I will always farm up a bunch of silver coins and then just do Prophecies until I run out. And I think that helps me not get tired of them, because there's always this gap where I'm not doing Prophecies because I'm farming silver coins. Now, I do understand why some people don't do them, because some of the prophecies are a bit like, I'm running in this random zone for 10 wisdom scrolls, like what is this? But a lot of them are pretty damn good. A lot of them are kind of automated, so if you fill up your prophecies, chances are you will do quite a few of them by just mapping and doing what you would be doing anyway. And some of them are basically sextants, like the Devouring Swarm one that just adds a bunch of extra monsters to your map. Though some of them do require you to actually get out of the mapping system and do something else, like over here, where I'm fishing for a Valside zone in the Blood Aqueduct. This is what I think annoys people the most about Prophecies, that you have to get out of the mapping system every now and then and do something in a zone where you're not really gonna get anything outside of the prophecy. But trust me, it pays off, it really does. Also, this Bloody Side zone finally decided to drop me Val Haste, and that's really good. Because Val Haste on a minion monster, even at low levels, is quite spicy. And that's pretty much all I did, aside from finding a new Uber trial, which was the Trial of Piercing Truth. So that's 4 out of 6 done. And I cannot believe that I almost forgot to mention this, but since I found the Siege Axe and it only had a little bit of elemental damage, it only had 1, 2, 3 cold, and I'm not adding any elemental damage to my attacks, either via something like Hatred or even Herald of Ash. I'm only running Herald of Purity, which adds flat phase. I decided to replace added cold damage on my Dominating Blow with Brutality. So I'm now running Dominating Blow, melee physical damage, Brutality, melee splash, Ancestral Call, and Multi-Strike. And while that actually lowered my tooltip DPS, it's better this way because the vast majority of enemies, especially the bosses, have some kind of an elemental resistance, so if you don't have a lot of elemental penetration, not a lot of that elemental damage is gonna get through, so it's better to just hit them with a raw fizz. And before I end the video, let's quickly take a look at the skill tree, which hasn't changed an awful lot. I filled in few nodes here and there, I picked up a jewel socket near Scion, and as I've mentioned already, I started to pick up some ES nodes here and there. And from now on, the videos are probably gonna slow down a little bit if I don't start another character, which I actually might. I have an idea for a pretty cool character, because right now I did the more interesting stuff already, and it's basically just gonna be a bunch of mapping, then something interesting happens, bunch of mapping, something interesting happens, and it's gonna take me a lot longer to find interesting clips to talk about, I think. I really don't want to make videos where I'm just like, I played this map, and then I played this map, and I played this map, and aren't I amazing? That's just, no, that's not happening. But anyway, I thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.